大家好，任浩浩姐来了是吧? Hello, sorry, I should speak in English because today we have a quite large number of audience joining. So I need to speak in English because there are many lecturers and staff members at the Business Research Institute and also Business School joining today. So I need to talk to English. But if you have any questions, please type in the dialog box. If you join in, if you can type in the dialog box your name, like English and Chinese name, that would be great. So I'm just preparing at the moment, and once everyone comes in, we can start the webinar. Can you hear me clearly? Please type in the chat box if you can see me and hear me clearly. Do I need to increase my volume? Yes? Good. Vivian is coming in now. And so please type in the dialog box your name and also say yes if you can hear me and see me clearly. Okay, so welcome to Business Research Institute China Center's webinar. We are a little bit early, and I still can't see everyone's typing though. Vivian, can you please type in the dialog box your name and can you hear me clearly? For some reason, I can't see everyone's dialogue. Oh, yes. Okay. Good. Very good. Thank you. And so when we get in, you should be muted and yeah, and you should be muted throughout the webinar so that our guest speaker can talk freely. And at the end, you do have opportunities to ask questions. So, okay. Vivian, maybe you can unmute. Okay, so admit. So I have more people coming in. Welcome, Mo Qihan. Welcome, Dell. Who's Dell? Okay, so thank you for joining us. We are still at the warm-up stage. So my name is Lucy Liang. I work for the Business Research Institute China Center. So if you have joined our webinar, just please keep your audio mute and then wait for our guest speaker arrive. Okay. Welcome. When you join the webinar room, we are still at the stage of waiting and preparing for our guest speaker. And I have asked Tom to join me sharp at 11. So if you join us, please just wait, and you can record your questions throughout the webinar, because at the end of it, we'll have a 5 to 10 minutes question and answer time. So we use the chat box for Q&A at the end. So I'm trying to, apparently this is the first time I host a webinar, so I need to physically admit all the 50 audience people. So hopefully people will be on time and joining us. So if, please type in the dialog box if you cannot hear me or see me clearly, because later on, I will have to share the screen and hand over the host to Tom, who's our guest speaker. So please test your own audio, video, and make it comfortable. and enjoy today's webinar. Thank you. I see whether more people joining. I need to let them in apparently. So yes, we have about 50 people joining us today for today's webinar. And today's topic is about China-UK collaboration in higher education. It's about introduction of China-Britain Business Council, CBBC. And Tom is going to talk about some policy impacts at strategic level. So at the moment, we're still at the warm-up and preparation stage. Once Tom joins in, we will start the webinar. So please bear with us. This is our the first of many webinar series. So we will have the next webinar next Wednesday, and there will be announcements sent out on the portal. So this time we try to be a little bit early. So normally it's 1 week ahead, but we'll probably give three to 4 days for people to register. So yes, as I said, the series of webinars around China-UK collaboration will be around innovation, entrepreneurship, and career development. If you know or you have someone you really want to invite them as a guest speaker to join the webinar, please email me because I can help facilitate to invite the right guest and to talk to all the students and academics at the University of Chester. So I'm still waiting, and I'll see whether there are people who need to wait me to invite in. No, still the case. Okay, so everyone seems in now. So that's very good. And yeah, we have more people coming in. Okay, I think people should receive a friendly reminder last night by our teacher Zhao, Stacy Zhao. And should be okay. Oh, Kirk is straight. Okay, so welcome to the webinar. My name is Lucy Liang. I'm still at the stage of getting all the audience in, participants in, and then wait for our guest speaker, Tom from Manchester, to join us. But it doesn't matter. This webinar, we have people joining us in Chester. We also have visiting students joining us from Shanghai. We also have international center staff joining us from other parts of the world. So if you join in, please test your audio and video to see whether you can see me and hear me clearly, and type in the chat box later on for any questions you have. So because this is a free Zoom meeting, I need to manually admit every single 50 to 100 audience. So please bear with me and mute your audio and just enjoy, have a cup of tea or coffee next to you and waiting for the webinar. And as I said, today's topic is China-UK collaboration in higher education. Basically, our guest speaker, Tom, will introduce his organization, China-Britain Business Council, and because he's in charge of higher education between China and UK, so he will focusing on that area. And he will talk about the strategic level, some policy and trends and impacts about both countries' collaboration. So I look forward. He's supposed to come beginning of the year at China-UK Education Forum, which organized by me and the project team at the Business Research Institute. However, the event was canceled, so therefore I invited him to today's webinar. So please bear with me. Thank you for joining, and we are still at the stage of preparing for the webinar. My name is Lucy Liang. I'm the host of a series of webinars on the topics of innovation, entrepreneurship, and career development. And of course, topics like China-UK collaboration will be also on the topics. As I said, if you are interested to hear anything, any topics, please email me and I can invite the right people to talk to us, and but mainly around the topic of innovation, entrepreneurship, and career development. Our next speaker, I can review a little bit about next episode. Our next speaker, next Wednesday, will have a very successful young entrepreneur based in London. Her name is Holly Wang. She is the brand founder and entrepreneur of Miss Patina, a fashion brand inside the Topshop stores. So if you go shopping at Topshop, you should see her brand. And her brand is currently a vintage style fashion. And her products and clothes has been worn by many celebrities in Hollywood and around the world. So yeah, that's the next speaker. So I'm doing a little bit introduction for my next speaker already while I'm preparing for our webinar today. As I said, let's give a little bit more time for people to join. I know some students may have difficulty to download Zoom, which is a new software. Most people are familiar with Microsoft Teams, but today we are using Zoom. So I was waiting for, yeah, I'm still 10:56. We still got 4 minutes. So as I said, welcome to the webinar. Let's preparing and get everyone in the meeting room. And then when Tom joins at 11, I will hand the host to him and he will play his PowerPoint presentation and talk to us about the topic today, China-UK collaboration in higher education. Okay, I shouldn't talk too much, but people still coming at last minute. Okay, so I don't know whether you can see other audience, but mainly today's audience are our visiting students. We have about 20 visiting students from 4 partner universities in China. We have degree students currently study at business school and other faculties within the University of Chester. We have visiting scholars. We have currently about 20 to 30 visiting scholars from China. And also I have a number of colleagues that currently in China or other parts of the world joining in. So thank you very much for you to show the interest of this series of webinars organized by the Business Research Institute China Center. As I said, while I'm talking, I still need to manually admitting in all these audience from different parts of the world. So please bear with me. As I'm talking, I'm still operating on the screen. So welcome to, okay, we've got more people coming. Welcome to the BRICC webinar. Today's webinar's topic is China-UK collaboration in higher education. And our guest speaker, Tom, is from China-Britain Business Council, and he's going to talk about he's going to introduce us to his organization, CBBC, and also focusing on higher education. He will also talk about the trend between two-country collaboration in higher education and the policy impact at strategic level. So I personally really interested to listen to him. And he was originally my guest for the China-UK Education Forum in January. However, that forum was postponed or canceled due to the COVID-19. So I'm very fortunate today I could make this webinar happen and let my students and my colleagues to listen to Tom and his presentation. So as you log in, those people joining lately, please check your volume and image to see whether you have any problems or issues, but please close your video. I think it's JP New. Yeah, so can you please close your screen and mute yourself so that we can hear the guest. At the end of this presentation, all the participants will have the opportunity to use the chat box to type in your questions. I think if you can just type in, I'll read out your questions at the end. There will be 30 minutes presentation from our guest speaker, then followed by 10 minutes questions. Now the time is 10:59. I'm expecting any minute Tom will join in. But welcome to today's webinar. So please relax and have a drink and wait for our guest to arrive. As I said, my name is Lucy Liang. Today's webinar is organized by the Business Research Institute China Center. Welcome, and please join and check your volumes, check your computer and devices to see whether you can hear us clearly. Okay, we have more people joining in, so we may have a 5 minutes overrun for people joining in. But as I said, welcome on board to this webinar series. Today's topic is China-UK collaboration in higher education. Our guest speaker, Mr. Thomas Clayburn from the China-Britain Business Council, is going to talk about introduction about his organization, CBBC. He will talk about at the strategic level about China-UK collaboration. And he will also talk about a little bit of the policy impacts. So as you can see from our flyer, our next Wednesday will have the same time. We'll have a next webinar, and we will have a young entrepreneur based in London. I will send a flyer out on the portal, but I can talk a bit before the thing starts. So so I aim for at least 2 to 3 webinars in June, for mainly for our visiting students, but also extend the webinar to other students and staff within the University of Chester, and some to our partner universities in China. So I just look at my mobile just in case. Tom maybe text me, no? Okay, so I'm hoping Tom will join me at any time. So right now we have a lot of staff joining, but still some last minute participants joining. Okay, so now I have Tom joining in. Good. Welcome, Tom. Welcome, Tom. As I said, welcome to today's webinar. The Business Research Institute China Center is very pleased to have you to be our guest speaker. If you could, hi, Tom. Really appreciate, as I said to our participant today, you are going to talk about the work of CBBC and China-UK collaboration in China Center. So I would like to hand over the host role to you and probably share the screen. So I need to do that operation. So click. Make host. Okay. Do you want to change host, Tom? Yes. Okay. Thank you. Please go ahead, Tom. Can please unmute, please. Your audio is still. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. I'll share the presentation. Give me 1 second.
Thank you. Yes, I said Tom can actually, there's a secret about him. He can speak a little bit Mandarin. Later, I may ask him to tell us in Chinese, because some of the students are from China. And you can see Chinese is one of the language in secondary schools in Britain, in UK. So some British people do speak in Chinese. So I would like later Tom to share, because he has lived and worked in China for a few years. So that's a very valuable and precious experience. Yeah.
Give me 1 second, I need to open the presentation.
Mm-hmm. So I will later mute myself as well. So as you open this first slide, I will just mute myself and then listen.
Great. Can you all see my screen now? Can I just check you can see my screen, Lucy?
Yes, I can. Sorry, I just unmute. Sorry. Yes, I can. Please go ahead and make it like a bigger screen. Zoom, please. Big screen.
Yeah, we'll do. Yeah, we'll.
Thank you.
1 second. Okay, great. Hopefully everyone can see my screen. Oh, still people joining. Give everyone a minute to join. So yeah, good morning everyone. Welcome to this webinar. My name is Tom. I'm the China Market Business Advisor in the education sector for the China-Britain Business Council. Just a little bit background. The presentation I want to give you today is a little bit around the work that the China-Britain Business Council does. And also I would like to address some sort of education policy related issues. My day-to-day job normally is working with universities. So we have over 50 university members in the UK. University of Chester is one of our members. And I'm delighted to be able to speak to you all today about UK-China education relations really, and some of the policies that are kind of affecting the education sector, and some of the innovation and kind of growth of the education sector in China. And I would like to just go through sort of a bit of that information, a bit about who CBBC are, what we do, and sort of the work that we do. So I'm going to move on to the next slide, hopefully. There we go. Okay, so the mission of CBBC is a very simple one. We aim to provide practical and timely advice to all British companies and institutions and organisations when they're trying to do business with China. So the history of CBBC is quite long. We've been working with companies for over 65 years. Started back in the early 1950s. So on the screen now you should be able to see a brief timeline of sort of key kind of points in the CBBC's relationship with China. We work very closely with government, so we work very closely with the Department of International Trade and with Foreign and Commonwealth Office to support businesses to engage and grow their trade. So predominantly the work we do is regarding exports, so companies and organisations that are trying to export goods or services to China. But there is, over the last few years, been a growing amount of inward investment from Chinese side into the UK. So we also support Chinese companies and entities and bodies to engage with UK businesses and government regarding foreign direct investment. So it's kind of a two-way street. I think when it really started out, it was more of a one-way kind of situation with mainly UK, helping UK companies to sell goods and services to China. So you can see that on this list, on this screen here, there are a lot of kind of when there's state visits or major political events. Usually CBBC has been involved or has been organising that. So there's a picture here you can see Xi Jinping visiting the UK in 2015. At the time, Lord Sassoon was the chair of CBBC, so he's meeting with President Xi there. And then there's lots of other events throughout, kind of banquets and events that have been involved. CBBC have been involved in the organisation and supporting the companies to attend these sort of events. So we've got a large footprint in China. We operate in over 13 cities. You can see the map here, spanning most of the country's got some CBBC representatives there. And in the UK, we have our main office in London. I'm based in Manchester, and a lot of colleagues across the UK in all the different regions to support businesses on a local level. So there's, you can see some of the, I've already mentioned BIT and the FCO that we work closely with, but we also work closely with other organisations like the Confederation of British Industry and EU SME Centre. Although the UK has now left the EU, we're still heavily involved in the EU SME Centre in Beijing, in particular, but across other parts of China, to support all companies engaging in that network. We were, prior to the UK leaving the EU, heavily involved in that activity, and we will remain a partner in that. So I don't want to spend too much time on these. So you can see we're a membership organisation, so companies and businesses and organisations can join CBBC as a member, and throughout the year we'll then, of their year of membership, will provide them with advice, with support. We run, under normal circumstances, we run lots of face-to-face events, but all our events, obviously, given the current COVID situation, are now delivered online. So we've got kind of companies across the spectrum, so from large multinational companies down to smaller companies and SMEs, and we work across all different sectors of industry. So I've got a couple of slides here. You can see sort of the length and breadth of the sort of members that we have. Companies I'm sure you'll have heard of, like HSBC, Jaguar, Land Rover, British Airways, and all the way through to all the universities members that I personally work closely with. So this slide is showing you, yes, the breadth of our university membership. So what's great about CBBC in the regard is why people want to be a member of CBBC is so that they can engage, they can network, and they can reach out to different companies or organisations within their industry or across sector with into different industries if they are looking for opportunities to pursue business opportunities with China. So you can see the University of Chester logo is on this slide. So yeah, we kind of, this slide I think is really important because it shows where CBBC sits and as an organisation what we do. So we work in any area that kind of crosses over education, business and industry, and government. So we work closely with all these three areas, and we sort of sit in the middle to provide kind of advice to companies and organisations around nuts and bolts of operating in China. So how to make sure that you're compliant, you're doing things legally, you're following sort of, we're not a tax firm or a legal firm, but we can introduce companies, organisations to our member organisations who are lawyers or who are accountants, and we can also provide kind of general advice around those areas if people have just kind of off-the-cuff questions. And we work in our team, the education team, work very closely in the areas that sort of intersect education and business, which are particularly around areas like employability, entrepreneurship, and innovation. So anywhere where there's it needs to be a link between government, business, and academia, for example, we can help kind of pull all those partners together and support them to carry out the kind of work in those three key areas. We also have run a few sort of services to help companies or help universities. So we have partner identification services where we can introduce a company or a university to a potential partner in China. So we do a lot of market research and provide those sort of support services. And we also have the Launchpad, which is a kind of easy way for companies or universities to put someone on the ground in China. They work through CBBC, but they kind of carry out work on behalf of the company or the university that they're kind of carrying out the project work for. So it's a really easy way and for companies or universities to basically have someone working in China on their behalf without having to set up a kind of a foreign-owned entity themselves. I've got sort of, we're at an interesting point. I'm going to talk about kind of government initiatives and policy. We're at an interesting point where we're at the end of the 13th five-year plan, and we haven't really seen what's going to happen in the 14th five-year plan. So we can only sort of guess or speculate. Also, obviously, COVID-19 has had a major impact on the Chinese economy, as it has on all global economies. So if I was doing this presentation 6 months ago, it would be very, very different. And I think we saw for the two sessions that Lianghui was hosted a few weeks ago, and it was very interesting to see Chinese government's approach to economic recovery and stimulus, and it's very different, I think, to how a lot of the Western kind of governments have approached kind of the COVID-19 situation and the economic recovery that will need to follow. I think the Chinese government have been more targeted with their fiscal stimulus and kind of economic recovery ideas, whereas in the West, it's almost, there's been a lot of money just sort of thrown at the problem. China, I think government's very wary following the financial crisis 2008. Chinese government pumped a lot of money into fiscal stimulus and economic recovery, and there was a lot of kind of bubbles, particularly in areas like real estate property, that sort of caused a bit of a bubble to burst, so to speak. So they don't want that to happen again. So they've kind of been more strategic, I think, in their fiscal stimulus. But I want to talk a little bit about sort of the key headline policy initiatives and how that then impacts on education and also UK-China kind of relations and areas like that. So the main ones, I think, for me, as in the education space, are looking at sort of Made in China 2025, and then how that's developed into sort of, well, potentially developing into China Standards 2035, and the change in the innovation strategy between how maybe it used to be between the UK industrial strategy and China's industrial strategy, and looking at sort of education modernization and China's goal on the education space to vastly improve the quality of all institutions and also the quality of research, and really become an industrial leader, innovative leader. So to try to almost the restructuring of the economy and the restructuring of kind of the goals in the research innovation space, for me, are really interesting. So the UK industrial strategy was pulled together 2017, and it's kind of really focused on sort of new technologies, and the kind of looking at how we can make the UK more innovative and deal with sort of challenges like aging society, clean growth, AI, and kind of mobility and services, and how that sort of tied into China's priorities. I think is really important when looking at the two countries and where areas where you can work together, areas of kind of joint areas of interest, or areas where you, areas of expertise. So the kind of, this slide sort of lines up UK sector industrial strategy and China's kind of set priorities from the previous 5-year plan, which I think, to be honest, they may change a little bit, but not much. I think it'll be more of a tweak going forward rather than a major change. So yeah, looking at areas, 5G, advanced manufacturing, AI, big data, and areas where they can fit this advanced kind of computing technology can be applied to other areas of the economy or other areas of industry, to really kind of improve them and make them more efficient, and make them more green, environmentally friendly, more secure, and sort of really kind of use tech and technology and all these developments to really kind of improve the industries that we already have. So there's a lot of kind of, on that list, there's a lot of synergy between the UK's strategies and ideas and China's strategy and ideas for development. This was a really cool infographic that I thought was from the old 5-year plan, and I obviously haven't got a new one because there is no new 5-year plan yet. But I think it sort of showed, how rapid and sort of how key areas of growth, key areas of development, and sort of kind of showed how that was being pulled together, like large-scale infrastructure projects, rapid development of the environment, kind of ambitious growth plans from the last 5-year plan. I'm not going to dwell too long on that. Then, yeah, obviously the Belt and Road Initiative is really key, really interesting for me, and also really interesting for education policy. And there's key kind of ideas that it will help from the UK side when they're looking at engaging with China and education. If there is a lot more room, I think, for linking up kind of multilateral research projects, or dealing with issues that affect the whole Belt and Road. There's far more opportunity for engagement on that. I know a lot of universities in the UK have got campuses, for example, in Africa, in the UK, and partners in China, and they're trying to link up their research to sort of support the Belt and Road Initiative, which I think is a really smart idea. But I think it's really interesting to see, how this there's been talk of a new health Silk Road as well, to kind of work on health innovation following COVID-19. I think that the infrastructure and the idea and the strategy has already been put in place with China, and links along the kind of the Belt and Road, and the new train lines that are being built to link Europe and China. I think it's kind of really interesting to see that where things might be in the next 10, 20 years between kind of connectivity between the two continents of Asia and Europe, really. I sort of already touched upon it. Made in China 2025 has kind of been, was the strategy from many years ago, and it's sort of been changed and amended and tweaked, and now it's more of a sort of looking forward to 2035 and 2049 is sort of the key dates in the government strategy. But the idea around it was to kind of improve what's being manufactured in China, to kind of improve the quality, improve rather than just copying or manufacturing things that have got patents or IP from the West, was to create your own IP and own patents. And there's again recently been a change. There was a rapid increase in the number of patents that were being filed in China, but the quality of them wasn't so good. So the Chinese government have recently issued new regulations and new policies to improve the quality of the research, improve the quality of innovation and the patents that are being filed, to kind of improve upon that. The idea is really to kind of make China more self-sufficient, more have innovation that you can use on a national level and a domestic level, but also things that can then be exported to partners. And I think, again, if you look back to the Belt and Road Initiative, there has been a clear kind of building of trade links between China and the countries along the Belt and Road Initiative kind of map, really, to support that and to be able to generate and create high-tech advanced equipment, high-tech machinery, for example, high-tech agricultural machinery and technology, low and new energy vehicles, and then to be able to create almost a new supply chain of countries, developing nations, where the countries will then be able to buy this equipment and these machinery from China. So it's creating a new ecosystem and changing sort of the structure of global trade, really. I'm not going to spend too much time on Internet Plus. I think it's a sort of, this was a few years ago that Li Keqiang really focused on Internet Plus as an idea, and I think it's really key and really clear that you can see that this idea of new technologies is really an important part of the Lianghui, and really a real focus on trying to get more companies, private sector companies, to foot the bill, really, of this development in AI, and the big companies, the likes of Baidu, Alibaba, Tencent, and are finding other partners to help them support the growth in this space. And basically, there's more of a move towards kind of incorporating it and integrating it into everything, and all walks of life, all industries, and basically using the Internet of Things and this idea of greater connectivity to make everything more efficient. So I won't spend too much time on this. I think this is a really interesting one. Innovation is something I spend a lot of time talking about. UK has always been seen as being very innovative, very creative, has got world-leading institutions with producing world-leading research, and working very closely with businesses to really maximize kind of R&D efforts, initiatives. And China has been slowly but steadily ranking higher and higher each year in different global innovation indexes. So this global innovation index here is published by the World International Patent Organization, and Cornell University, and the French business school INSEAD. It's one of many innovation indexes or kind of surveys that they carry out, and I think this one is really interesting to see that China has every year kind of gone up in this ranking, and now in the last one that was published, which was last July 2019, China now ranks 14th in the world in the Global Innovation Index, and it just shows that the China has been increasing volume of kind of work that it's been doing research-wise and publishing patents, but now there is a big focus and a turn round towards focusing on the quality and the impact of that innovation, and how you can measure that, and how you can really kind of quantify it and make it implemented into technologies of tomorrow, really. I think education and sort of this is more looking at the spending on education, but education is very valued, I think, in the West and in China, but I think it's almost the one-child policy in China and other kind of demographic issues has meant that it's become even more valued. Culturally and historically, it's always been very valued, but I think there's a big kind of push from Chinese consumers, parents, to really focus on an importance of education, and a large amount of household spending is actually put towards education in China, more so than in the West. So I just wanted to raise that point, and just that, the middle class, there's a rising middle class in China, and there's some stats here regarding how many middle class consumers there are in China versus the US, and how household income is increasing, and then obviously as household income is increasing, more money is being spent on education. So there's been a number of Chinese kind of government policy plans since the 13th Five-Year Plan, but also in the years preceding it. I want to just touch upon a few. There's been previously, the Chinese university had sort of the 918 and 211 project, which was to focus on a certain number of kind of top universities to support them with their research, help them build key laboratories, and boost their quality of their research. But that then sort of has developed into the Double First Class initiative, which is sort of building on from that on the kind of the university side. But there's also been a bigger push, I think a little bit maybe more quietly or not as well noticed in the West, towards vocational education, with the newly announced last year, the Double High program or project, which has got, I think, 197 vocational institutions in China that have been designated as kind of key pilot institutions for the improvement of vocational education. Chinese government really recognized that people need to be skilled. Not everyone needs necessarily an academic degree, or not everyone is going to go into to do world-leading research or be in that kind of space, but people do need skills, technicians. People need to be able to operate machinery to a high standard. That I think is kind of really, really key. And this is where I think it's a really interesting opportunity for UK providers to do more in this vocational education space, because UK is very strong, as is Germany. Germany and the UK, I think, are two of the strongest kind of vocational education countries in Europe, and we have the know-how and the support to be able to support this kind of the growth of vocational education in China. So I just wanted to touch on that it's not all about just the academic research and high-level stuff. There's also much more that can be done on like real-world practice, knowledge and skills that people need to operate, and then those are more vocational related skills. Let's go through this. I think looking at global rankings of universities is sort of key. That China's universities have gone up in those rankings kind of sort of almost every year. The new QS world rankings are actually, I think, were published today. So sorry, I haven't had a chance to incorporate them into this, but they're too new, but I'll look at them later. But I believe that in the Asian world rankings from QS, Tsinghua and Beida are now the top 2 institutions. And the kind of world rankings every year, Chinese institutions have improved. This slide sort of shows that in 2018, China only had 2 institutions in the top 100 of the QS world rankings, but then the following year in 2019, they had 6 in the top 100. So it's really interesting to see that those institutions are breaking now into the top of the league tables globally. And it's not just the institutions in the US and Europe that are always sitting at the top. So that's kind of, I think, showing that the work that the Chinese Ministry of Education have been doing on improving the quality of their institutions and assessing them, and a real focus on improving research in output and quality, is now starting to be really seen in kind of global metrics that are ranking all institutions globally. There is a sort of education modernization plan for 2035 for the whole nation, but I think it's almost on a local level being interpreted and implemented in slightly different ways. So I'm going to come on to some of the regional differences or regional approaches that are happening in a few more slides. But I just think to reiterate, the plan is to be able to establish lifelong learning. So it's not just that you go to school and you go to university and then you finish learning. You need to have opportunities and access to continue learning right the way through your career, to improve your skills and knowledge and be able to certify that. There is also a move to kind of improve education right through, so preschool, school education, and kind of narrow the gap between education in urban, rural areas. And there's like I've already mentioned, there's a real focus on improving the quality and accessibility of vocational education. Okay, so I'm going to quickly touch on a couple of regions. So I've only got like a couple more minutes before we're going to do some Q&A, but the Greater Bay Area is a key development area for Chinese government policy. Shenzhen has been made to be a pilot development zone, so kind of really kind of moved up, and obviously Shenzhen is sort of becoming the Silicon Valley of China. It's very focused on high-tech industries, developing those, and Shenzhen didn't really have very many institutions or universities, but in the last 10-15 years they've been building more and more universities in Shenzhen and in that region, and there's a real focus of building sort of high-quality research institutions with not with huge numbers of students, but just really focusing on quality and some core kind of key research areas, key subject areas that sort of fit into the plan. So this sort of is some relatively new news that they've released. The Ministry of Science and Technology in March this year released new measures to improve research in a number of key tech areas: AI, 3D manufacturing, cloud-based computing, big data, etc. Shenzhen is now a fourth comprehensive national science development area. So the other ones are Shanghai, Hefei, and Beijing. China Academy of Science has opened, or we're working closely with Shenzhen University of Science and Technology to really build up their ability and their kind of capacity and research. And there's a whole district in Shenzhen, Guangming district, which is focused very heavily on developing high tech and improving education in that district. So I think also you can see that there's been a real move to kind of but universities from elsewhere have moved in to set up Shenzhen campuses. There's been an increase in the amount of innovation institutes and labs that have been created, provincial labs as well for AI and digital economics been created in Shenzhen. So it's a real hotbed of development and improving there. And the other area that I sort of want to touch on is the Yangtze River Delta. The Yangtze Delta area has always been high quality sort of education in that area, with Shanghai and Zhejiang and Jiangsu kind of really focused on that. And I think there's been more like sort of push in those places on a local level to really kind of supercharge development and again focus on links between universities and industries. There's been lots of consortium created. There's lots of research funding in those areas, and it's really kind of there's a really big push to improve university development in that area, in those areas. And then there's a couple of other things that have happened recently. I think sort of COVID-19 related, but I think there's a clear push from Chinese Ministry of Education, Chinese government to improve basic research. There's a lack, well, there's a perceived lack of quality for basic research, and not enough researchers in areas such as maths, physics, chemistry, advanced materials, that kind of stuff. So there's a real push to target students when they're doing the Gaokao before they enter universities in China, to kind of identify which students will be really good in those areas, and we'll get, and then basically a number of the top universities will get sort of almost first pick of those students, and we'll build like tailored programs for them, and they won't be able to have the flexibility to change away from those course kind of areas, subject areas. So I think it's really the government's looking to alleviate shortages in areas such as chip design, software design, advanced manufacturing, material science, that kind of stuff. So it's really supporting that. And obviously COVID-19 has had a big impact on potentially on employment. So there's a concern that obviously China will have 8 million new graduates entering the workforce this summer, and the government were very concerned about how they will all find jobs. So there's been a real big push, which I think is really interesting. The 100-day campaign has been called to basically create more jobs, create more opportunities within government, between different ministries, and to really increase places in postgraduate places in universities, look for opportunities for people to teach, whether that be in rural areas or in urban areas, and really focus on like a grassroots kind of campaign to make sure there's enough opportunities for people, so there isn't mass unemployment following this kind of graduation cycle. So I think that's really, really interesting point to see the mobilisation and rapid mobilisation of that. I think that's sort of it. I've wanted to talk a little bit about how UK universities will have more opportunities, and Chinese universities are to engage in sort of these new areas, new innovative areas, research areas that I've already mentioned, that kind of fit with this new infrastructure idea of big data, AI, quantum computing, etc., that will really kind of shape the future of kind of those research areas, and to work closely with industry on R&D, and then how to commercialize your research and make it actually apply to real world situations. Thank you. 谢谢大家. This is my final slide with my Chinese name. Thanks, Lucy. Can I hand back to you for some questions?
Yeah, I try to unmute and then open my video. Start my video. Okay. Thank you very much, Tom. I know maybe we should allow a little bit longer, but yeah. So first of all, quickly, what is your Chinese name in Chinese?
It's on the screen here. It's Lei Zhiyong.
Lei Zhiyong. Okay, very good. So I guess I can take some questions from the audience. I'm still looking at the chat box to see any questions coming in, but I haven't got any. But maybe you can answer a question for me right here for you. So for the University of Chester, we are kind of in the middle ranking university. How can we, like, as a university, attract, say, students to study postgraduate degrees and attract some international students, Chinese students, to study postgraduate degrees at the University of Chester?
Yeah, I think all universities have their areas of strength or their areas of expertise, and they can show that or demonstrate that. I think through the middle ranking or the lower ranking universities in the UK that have had strong success in the China market have built long-standing partnerships with Chinese institutions and Chinese government on a local level, so that they've almost built a reputation within certain locations in China or within certain institutions that they are strong in certain areas. So I don't think you can just attract students by saying, "Oh, we're the University of Chester, and Chester's a beautiful place." There needs to be more to the marketing and more to this sort of the conversation that happens. And I think I myself used to work for the University of Derby, and we had a beautiful city to work in, beautiful university, but it was difficult to attract Chinese students because they just saw the ranking and said, "Oh, you're 50 whatever. That's not good. You're not top university. We're not interested." But I think we had areas of strength where we're very strong in arts, very strong in engineering. Did some great work with Rolls-Royce and Toyota because they were companies that were just down the road, and we could evidence that and show that to students that if they chose us, that they could do this sort of work. We had we had some partnerships with universities that were doing things like filmmaking, and we were very strong in that area. And I think when you have alumni success stories, those alumni can tell your story and say, "Yeah, we came to this university, we had a great experience, we learned all these wonderful skills, and now my career has really benefited because of that." So I do think there's a lot to be said for that approach. And I do think that, personally, I do feel that all UK universities have got great quality, and they've all got different strengths, and it's really important to be able to know what your strengths are and then be able to articulate them, and then be able to build those kind of long-term relationships with partner institutions or maybe one or two agents in China that are really happy to really push and promote, and also really understand why the students should choose your institution.
Thank you. Well, I'm just waiting for other people to type in their or you can raise your hand. I don't know whether you could click on the button, raise your hand, and you can unmute and ask questions. I like to give our audience, participants, opportunity to ask questions. Yeah, so are there any questions? If you could just type or raise your hand or unmute yourself and to see whether you want to ask Tom any questions, because we have to 11:45. Otherwise, I think I will have other questions, but I just hold on. Okay, good. We have a question. When will the next 5-year, when will the next 5-year plan be published? Okay, Emma says, when will the next 5 years?
Okay. It's due to be published before the end of this year. Typically, they're published in the autumn time / winter time, prior to the new one. So the current 5-year plan, and it does expire in 2020. So that basically before 2021, so before January, they need to have published the new one, well, agreed on what the new content will be, and then publish it and make sure it's obviously shared with everyone who needs to see it. So yeah, we all expect that the new 5-year plan will be published in the autumn time this year.
Okay. And the audience, I think some Chinese students may be a little bit shy to unmute and ask questions. They ask me so many difficult questions in my lecture, so I think your position to ask questions. But yeah, in terms of short-term programs, online programs, a virtual university concept, our VC has sort of thinking about strategic plan to let our university to run more towards a virtual university. This concept can easily be accepted by Chinese students, and would the people pay? Oh, sorry, there's another question, sorry. Hi, Tom, do you have number of import and export between two countries?
I don't have the stats handy, but we do have that data. So I can share that with you after this presentation, and you can pass it on, if that's all right, Lucy.
Good. Another question from Vivian, our student. How can we prepare better if you want to apply for postgraduate study in UK? As policy changes, lots of work. So advice to students, please, who want to study postgraduate in UK.
Okay. Well, I think it definitely it's important to have a good, I think, the kind of personal statement and express why you wanted to study the postgraduate level, and also show the university why you'll be able to succeed on the course. Now, a lot of I don't know what subject area it's in, but for things like arts, obviously you need to have a strong portfolio, and you need to make sure you demonstrate the portfolio you have. And for other subject areas, you may also need to show how your previous experience, whether that be a study or extracurricular experience, kind of fits into the postgraduate course you want to study. So I think that's sort of really important, is to show how it will benefit you in your career going forwards, and why you will be able to succeed on that course. So I think those are the things you have to be able to demonstrate in your application. There is obviously the new graduate immigration route, which will be live from next September. So you'll be able to work in the UK following your study. So it's almost the old post-study work visa, but it's not called that anymore. But it's a similar thing. So there'll be a limited time where you can work, and I think that's a really positive thing that the UK has reintroduced that, because it will enable students to get that kind of work experience in the UK easily after graduation. And that if they then want to go back to their home country after that period, then they'll be able to more easily find a job having that work experience. I think work experience is key. Personally, I think just having a degree is not enough. You need to be able to demonstrate you have actually put those skills into practice.
So we have a next question from Chang Liu Chang. Do you think most British universities will still adapt online lectures in 2021?
I think for this, I think most universities have set out that they will have potentially some online learning, some online study, and also some face-to-face in potentially smaller groups. So I know a lot of universities will be prioritizing, for example, engineering. They need to get the labs back up running for September intake, and that they will then have students be able to go in and use those facilities in a socially distant way. But things like business, I don't think, well, I guess like you will still need those sort of small group engagements, but a lecture could be put online and delivered perfectly well online, and that's so you don't need to go into a lecture hall to have to deliver that content. So I think that's sort of the approach from most universities. I don't know what University of Chester are doing, but from my talking to universities that I've been talking to, that seems to be the approach. There's going to be almost a blended approach, definitely until January time, but maybe even further on, depends how it works. But I think this calling it online, I don't think it will just be online. I think there will be an element of face-to-face engagement, just in smaller groups, and you have to keep your distance. But it's not just you're going to study online. That's very different. I think need to make it clear that there will be still some engagement on a face-to-face level, and there will be access to labs and facilities. It won't just be you can sit at home and study an online course, because that's not what it will be.
Yeah, I think the time is up, so I'm just concerned that the Zoom will cut us out at any moment. But we do have another question, so if you don't mind, just continue answer. If we've been cut out, I will email you afterwards. But thank you very much, Tom. So do you mind to continue until the time runs out?
No problem, yeah, no problem. I've got a few more minutes.
You can read, I think there's more coming questions. Next one is, how do you think the next move of UK university circumstances?
Sorry, I didn't catch that. It went a bit crackly. How do I think the university can do what?
How do you think the next move for UK universities under these circumstances?
The visa circumstances.
I don't know. Maybe that audience, Yang Feng, could you please clarify what do you mean by that? Or you just unmute yourself and ask. Yang Feng, I think it's Yang Feng. I don't know. He has a question, I think. Okay, here we go. I think he's probably asking for British university strategies after post-COVID-19. I think it's post-COVID-19, the British universities probably moved to the blended, mixed way of delivery. But he's
blended mixed way delivery, and I think the visas, I've already mentioned the new sort of graduate immigration route visa, which I think is a big selling point for UK universities to attract students. I also think that, I think it's difficult for students coming this September with regards to, the visa centres some of them have just opened in China. So there's obviously going to be a bit of a backlog of getting people their visa to come to the UK. So I think universities are well aware of challenges for recruitment for this September, and there's a lot of them have put in place ways to mean people can arrive a bit later, that they're not going to miss things. There might be some block delivery in places of courses, so that it's not, you don't have to go and do 5 modules at once. You can just do 1 module and then another module. So I think there's a lot of measures that are being put in place by universities to make life smooth, where things run smoothly this year, and everyone realizes it's a new situation to deal with. But I think universities are being quite good at moving towards implementing everything that needs to be implemented to make sure it's safe and that things run smoothly. I think I've noticed that over the last definitely a few weeks or months.
Okay, I think thank you. Yeah, thank you, Tom, for your excellent presentation and answer our questions. So if you don't mind, later I may share some of your presentation with other colleagues and students. And and really appreciate your time. So hope we could have you back at some stage, for future webinars or events. Thank you very much, Tom. Thank you.
Right, thanks a lot. Cheers.
And
thanks everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you. For the rest of participants, thank you very much for your time today to come to the webinar. Then the next webinar will be next Wednesday, and we will send out information on portal. Please send me any questions if you want, and I will try to post today's video on the suitable platform. So thank you very much for your participation today. And I hope to see you at our next webinar next Wednesday with Ms. Holly Wang, the young entrepreneur in London. Thank you.